In September of 2001, I was back in school. And I hadn't been in school for about 5 years. And I have to admit, one of my worst faults, I have many and I know that, but probably one of my worst faults is I procrastinate. And it's something I've done most of my life. I'm great at procrastination. And I saw where this became a problem when I was, as I said, I was in school. And at the end of my first semester, I had 3 papers I had to write, 2 25-page papers and 1 15-page paper. And like I've always done, I waited until the last moment. Now, I have to admit, I do work really well under pressure. And I'm pretty good, even though I procrastinate, of figuring out sort of just what is the last moment I have that I have to start doing something. And so 2 days before all these 3 papers were due, I started writing. I know there are some people out there horrified right now by that idea of trying to write basically 65 pages in 3 days. But I'm also fortunate, particularly back then, I didn't need as much sleep as I do now. And so I just started writing. And writing and writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And the thing that struck me was the day they were due, I just wrote until about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And at that point, I actually finished. They were all done. I won't say they were the best work I've ever done in my life, but they were all done. And I ended up falling asleep. The problem is, the next morning, I had the 9 a.m. Mass. And I slept through my alarm. I woke up about 20 past 9 and I ran over to the church, and they had simply done a communion service. They just assumed I wasn't coming, which was, well, reasonable on their part. And that's the problem with procrastination. You might get the thing done that you need to get done, but other things get in the way. And it can affect other things that you need to be doing. That's what happened to me that day. And I have to admit, I've gotten better at not procrastinating, but it's still a problem in my life. I mean, anyone who's been to any of the presentations that I do in the parish, it's not unusual for me to be finishing them up on the day that they are due, for them to be completed maybe an hour or so before I'm about to give them. Again, I'm getting better at that. Many times I'm starting them much earlier and working on them, and I am thinking about them in my head, so it's more just sitting down and getting them in PowerPoint or however I'm presenting them. But the problem for me is, and I think for a lot of people, is we can end up procrastinating simply because we find other things in the moment that we think simply are more important. Because we have time to deal with that. We have time to work on that. Because it's X amount of hours, days, weeks, months away, so I don't need to worry about it right now. But then it sneaks up on us. And other things may end up then need to be done fall to the wayside. Because then we have to focus on that thing. Or if we'd done it sort of over time, we probably could have done all the things that need to happen. If we're honest with ourselves, I think most of us are that way in our relationship with God. We can have a tendency of procrastinating. Because God's always going to be there. God is always going to love us. God's always going to accept us. God understands that I need to do X first, and then I'll get to him. And right there, our relationship with God is messed up. Because God should always come first. Because the funny thing is, if God always comes first, then everything else will actually work itself out the way it needs to. And when God doesn't come first, that's when our lives get the most messed up. But we can procrastinate in our relationship with God because we know we have the time. We know we can do it later. We know that whatever. But what we're really saying is there are things in our lives that are more important than God. Every time we say God will understand, what we're saying is this is more important to me than you are, God. Whatever it is. Whether it's in a relationship, which quite frankly, once we put a person above God, then that relationship is flawed and broken. Once we choose to seek to be better at something, rather than praying, reading scripture, going to church, whatever it might be we need to be doing, that thing is now flawed and broken. It can never be fully what it should be. It can never reach its full potential because that's only discovered when God is first. We can come up with lots of excuses as to why we can procrastinate in our relationship with God. But every time we do that, we're preparing ourselves for failure. I thought I could get it all done. I could write the 3 papers. I could celebrate Mass. But because I procrastinated, the thing I really needed to probably be doing the best job at, celebrating Mass, is what got hurt the most. And whenever we choose to put things before God, then the one thing that will suffer is that relationship with God. And that means everything in our life suffers. It's that simple. May we choose to make a change in our life. May we choose no longer to procrastinate in our relationship with God, but put that first. God bless.